Hello, all. Welcome to the second episode of Enterprise Tech India Unplugged. And today, again, we have with us Kumaran, who is the chief mentor of tinymagic.com, which is TINYMIGQ.com. Is that right,
Yeah,
Kumaran?
magic, MIGQ.com. Yes.
Right. The Q is the important thing.
Yeah.
All right. So today we have a few interesting topics to discuss. One of the things is first to define what this enterprise tech is all about. We will also talk about digital transformation. What does it really mean to you? Should you really care about it? And as a bonus, Kumaran has agreed to give us a book recommendation, which he will talk about at the end of the show. So don't miss out on it. Listen to the end and make sure you listen to the read the book which he is recommending. So Kumaran, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali to all. We are recording this on a Diwali day, and Kumaran has been gracious enough to give us this time. Thank you, Kumaran. So, so tell me about how is enterprise IT really different from other kinds of IT?
Uh, the first thing with enterprises is you compare yourself to sitting in a small boat, a single man boat, okay, versus you are a captain of a ship. I would say that's the easiest analogy that we can think of. When
Okay.
you are in a small IT shop, you just need one oar, and then you do this, the boat will turn.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but you can only go so far.
Right.
You can't cross the ocean with it. Probably you can cross a river with it. Enterprise IT is like that big ship. You have these
Okay.
engines, people, and all sorts of things together. Okay.
Okay.
So in order for that to turn even by 15 degrees, it's going
Mm-hmm.
to take a lot of things to fall into place. And usually we are somewhere in the middle. And
Right.
this is the thing that we need to think of. So
Right.
each has its own advantage and disadvantages.
Right.
Understanding that it's more complex to
Mm-hmm.
deal with something at an enterprise level is
Right.
the first thing that we need to understand.
Looks
Okay,
like the fan is is
okay,
very noisy, very noisy. We
okay.
can, if it is not too hot. I'm, of course, I know Chennai. This is the monsoon season, and this can be really hot. So we will try and see how long can Kumaran sweat it out. So what you're saying is that that enterprise IT means that a lot of these moving parts have to work together to make this entire enterprise work, right? So when we say enterprise,
Correct.
it is any company which is producing goods or services for other people, right?
Yeah, and let's put it, it's anything where the number of IT users goes beyond 200.
Okay, okay,
That would be a kind of good thumb
good
rule. I don't know.
ballpark,
Yeah.
good ballpark. So
I,
if you are running a company with 200 people using IT infrastructure or IT services, it classifies nearly as an enterprise.
200 tech users. I could
200
have
tech.
1,000 laborers on the factory floor.
Okay.
But if I have 200 guys using computers, then it qualifies as an enterprise.
So today, when with this age of this, bring your own device and bring your own computer and bring your own mobile, there is this intersection, very interesting intersection of this consumer IT and enterprise IT. How do you see that?
It's interesting. It's not just, we call about generation gaps, right?
Hmm.
And in the technology world, this gap is very big
Hmm.
across the world.
Hmm.
So, for example, we were talking about this I was working with my financial planner yesterday, and
Hmm.
his is a very small company,
Right.
and he was connecting from home. His
Hmm.
associate was in his office,
Okay.
and he was telling that, hey, my desktop is faster than yours.
Hmm.
And I was telling, and that is a 15-man company.
Hmm.
Okay, so in a 15-man company, also that problem exists,
Right.
wherein the guy connecting, and I'm not even talking about devices. Same
Hmm.
laptop I'm using at office and home, but at home I have a better bandwidth, 20 Mbps connection, and in office I have a 50 kbps probably when it comes split.
Right.
The irony is, even a large corporation, like let's say an MNC bank,
Right.
they have the same problem.
Okay.
I guess that's the key challenge. So even though we have these new devices and things coming in, there is a gap. The moment you enter into an enterprise space, I would go ahead and make the statement, we are 4 generations back. Outside the company gate, you are in the 21st century.
Right.
When you cross the company gate, you step into the 19th century in an
Right.
IT perspective.
Right. Right. In fact, that is actually a very interesting point which you brought up. That the amount of bandwidth available at your home is so large as compared to what you have access to as an enterprise user.
Correct.
Uh, and do you think, is there a reason? Is it just inertia, or is there a commercial reason for that, or can the enterprises not really afford that? What is the real reason?
I think it's a combination of multiple factors, and I think that's what makes the enterprise IT interesting than a commercial IT. So, for example, if I have to buy a laptop, right,
Mhm.
and I put it and I ask uh, some cable provider to give me a connection, then the cost and the risk is just mine, and this is one decision maker.
Right.
But in the company, for everything, right, ease of use, risk, cost, lot of consensus has to be built, and that is the one which causes that. I wouldn't call it inertia. I think it is basically the lag between a requirement and the result that it will produce.
Okay. But you're saying that commercially the bandwidth is really not that expensive for people to not be able to afford as enterprises. They should be really able to afford, right? Uh, uh,
Yeah, but I guess the problem is it's not just they increase the bandwidth, right? They
mhm.
also have to put a router for it.
Yes,
That's
yes.
where
Oh, the
enterprises gets
infrastructure.
tricky.
The infrastructure piece actually is the additional cost.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the moment I have 3 routers in my office, I need one Cisco certified engineer to be on my payroll.
right.
Okay, so all those things, right, comes in along, and I think that's the reason why enterprises find it difficult. So it's like a mirage. They see a solution in front of their eyes, but they
Right.
cannot get it past the security gate.
Right. So, what do you think could be the sort of the solution to accelerate this thing? So, if I'm a uh, let's say a small company owner, or maybe managing the IT for a medium-sized company,
Mm.
what should I really do to sort of make sure that this difference between at home and at an office reduces, if it not goes away, at least it is much better.
I think the first thing is you have to reduce the change that you want to bring about.
Hmm.
The area of impact,
Hmm.
right, has to be reduced. Now, this is very tricky. When I say reduce the area of the impact, which means both the risk and the reward will be restricted. And classical enterprise thinking is, I want to do this one change and the entire company will be transformed.
Hmm.
So we got to get away from that mindset. So let's take a small company. In that small company, I want to increase. I could basically say that, okay, just the marketing department alone, which is not working on such a critical information, okay, or sales, I will move them into a separate bandwidth connection.
Hmm.
Let me see how that works. Rest of my company, operations, finance, delivery, all that will continue to remain on the basic bandwidth.
Hmm.
Roll it out to those guys who are the sales folks guys. For that, I need, as a guy, as a, let's say, the manager or VP IT, I need to think differently.
Right.
And once I'm able to show success in the sales department just by rolling out bandwidth, and I'm saying it's less risky, I come to the next high branch which I can tackle, or the next low lying fruit.
Right.
Probably that could be marketing if it's not too strategic, or it could be something in simple delivery, right? Operations. So take it one step at a time.
Right. And and with the cloud, actually, it has become even more necessary for enterprises to actually increase the bandwidth, because the only way to access those services which are on the cloud is to have internet bandwidth,
Correct.
and and getting a dedicated leased line to a cloud service provider is much more expensive than just using internet, right?
Correct.
And VPN to the cloud is probably the cheapest solution which people can come up with, right?
Yes.
uh,
Correct.
so I think there are a lot of these small factors which are enabling people to start thinking outside the box of restricting people from accessing Facebook to increase bandwidth and all such restrictions which are put actually on people. So talking about these restrictions specifically, what do you think from ethical or as an employee perspective? Of course, I always have access to my mobile device, which has sort of today unlimited bandwidth, and I can be on Facebook all the time. So now, does that really make sense anymore for enterprises to be reducing and putting all those controls in place to so quote unquote people wasting time on Facebook, right? So I've seen companies which don't even allow access to YouTube, where today 90% of the education content related to, in fact, including this podcast, is available on YouTube, right? And they are restricting access to YouTube for because YouTube has other stuff. So what is your view on that?
Um, I I think there's no choice. Okay, it's high time enterprise figure out a way of handling that. You can't have stability and growth in the same place.
Hmm.
Okay, and if you have growth, that means there will be a risk associated with it. So you grow into a risk rather than becoming a complete risk taker. You slowly go into a risk. So that's what you just reduce it to the sales folks. Okay,
Hmm.
anyway, they are measured by their deliverable.
Right.
Okay, and if there's any checks that is needed, let it be a management by exception.
Hmm.
So you find somebody waiting and spending a lot of time on YouTube,
Hmm.
publish it. Let their managers decide whether what needs to be done. Let the IT guy not be the person deciding whether he should watch YouTube or not.
Right.
Maybe that group needs to watch more YouTube or not.
Yes. Yes. And the whole means I think people should understand that when you are working in the enterprise, there is there is no property as such, right? But what do you think on the privacy perspective? What is the impact of such a decision?
I think that's not too much of a problem because when you're giving access to sites today, um, to begin with, at least increasing bandwidth isn't a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That can be restricted.
Right.
Right? That can be given a free flow. You still have your other policies in place. So
Right.
that's the first risk that you take. I just increase the bandwidth. All sites which you shouldn't be go, that thing continues.
Right.
Then you move a notch further. You have to say, no, I won't monitor that less. So as far as you, as an enterprise manager, you grow to be a risk taker. If you are not, or if your organization is not that risk taking, then help the organization become a risk taker. And the only way we learn that is by taking risks little by little. At whatever level I am, I take the next level. So in this case, I take the risk of taking going from a typical lease line to one group using, let's say, the popular internet service providers, cable
Right.
providers.
Right. Right. So this actually, so you mentioned the concept of the risk, right? And today, the going segueing into the new topic, which is digital transformation, which is the hot topic of all enterprise IT. Uh, what do you think there is enough appetite of risk, because digital transformation is much bigger risk as compared to just providing bandwidth, right? Uh, in your view, what is the risk really, or let's step a little back. Uh, we'll define what is actually digital transformation so that people understand. Once they understand what is digital transformation, they can decide whether it is worth the risk to go for.
Okay, so interestingly, actively started looking at what is digital transformation around 5 years ago. Okay, that's when the word started. And it's the same thing which I guess holds. The answer to that is similar to what was true for SOA, master data management, uh, cloud consolidation. Essentially, it is in a funny manner. It says it's like teenage boys and girls discussing sex. No one has a clue what it really means, but everybody thinks they have understood it. Okay, so I'm starting by telling I haven't fully understood it. Okay,
Okay.
I can only tell my limited understanding of what I mean by digital transformation. To put it bluntly, I don't think there's anything new about digital transformation. When Charles Babbage found out the computer, that is in 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
right? When zeros and ones were invented,
Mm-hmm.
digital transformation has already started.
Right.
Okay, so what is it that makes it special now?
Mm-hmm.
Is I would say the cost of digital technologies has come down drastically. I think that's the significant change in the past 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Okay, so it's as simple as a guy in India sitting in a remote village with
Mm.
150 rupees has now access to premium data available for somebody sitting in the US. He has the same data.
Right.
That is the, if you ask me, the basic infrastructure cost of a digital experience has come down. That is the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I would, so digital transformation is how can I leverage that for the benefit of people? Because the basic cost has come down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unless there are certain things that we do differently, this cannot be leveraged. We
Okay.
just talked about it. In I have a bandwidth of 40 Gbps, paying
Right.
1,000 rupees.
Right.
Okay, for an enterprise user who spends at least around $20 in a big corporate center per desktop,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't even get 10 Mbps.
Right.
So he is actually a poverty-stricken digital citizen below the poverty line.
Okay. Now the poverty line is defined by the amount of bandwidth you have access to.
Bandwidth you have access to, right? And interestingly, the guy on the street has more availability of digital capability than a guy sitting in a corporate network.
Okay. Yes.
Digital transformation is about breaking that wall
Mm-hmm.
and getting that low cost digital experience to the digital citizens also.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I would say digital transformation is about that, breaking those walls, working through them, working
Okay.
through those complexities of securities and risks and other stuff, right?
Right.
That is where the crux of digital transformation lies in. Let me give an example.
Mm-hmm.
If a manager can actually get 1 Gbps to every user as an
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure guy, I
Mm-hmm.
would say he has done digital transformation of his company.
Right. Right.
Okay, forget IoT, AI, machine learning, all that, right? If
Right.
he can actually get that 1 Gbps to his enterprise users
Mm-hmm.
on his desktop, that's a good example of digital transformation. But
Right.
today, what is happening is it's like you're in a conventional world, right? You would have heard this. If I buy a 500 gram toothpaste,
Mm-hmm.
that is much more cheaper than buying a 2 rupee sachet.
Right. Right.
Okay, so the benefit of
a particular technology has to be got to the end user at that low cost.
Right. Right.
So
So,
this is a classical problem that we are facing.
okay.
So to me, digital transformation is that the ability to drive the benefits of a digital technology at the least possible cost
Mm-hmm.
in the least possible time. It has to be frugal and it has to be fast and it has
Okay.
to be feasible. If these three things are applicable, then we have a digital transformation in hand. Otherwise, I have another digital project which I'm
Okay.
executing in the enterprise, which we have been doing for hundreds of years. I mean, like top 3-4 decades.
Right.
Like previously, I did it Oracle running on-prem. Now
Right.
I'm doing it Oracle on cloud.
Yes. Right. Right. So when these reports come out, for example, this India digital transformation market predicted, which is at 710 billion in the next 5 years, including the current year, with a compounded annual growth rate of 74%. So when they talk about these, what these reports talk about is they're talking about IoT and smart cities and all. What is all that about? What is all that about in terms of digital transformation? Are they the those projects which we are talking about, or they are really transforming something?
Um, we have to look at each one specifically to comment on it. It's at a 50,000 feet level, whatever we are seeing.
Right.
But the assumption that's being made is we are all experts in execution.
Right.
Okay. If everything is executed well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, sure. I guess it's there.
Mm-hmm.
That possibility is definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's like, okay, I weigh 92 kilos today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, in the next 1 year, okay, I can reduce my weight by 10 kgs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I can increase my muscles by 24%.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possibility? Of course.
Yes.
But the question is, so is there a
But you
possibility
have to
of
go to
that
the gym
benefit?
every day.
Correct.
Right.
I gotta go there. So then somebody can say, oh, there is this fat Kumaran who's 94 kilos. He can actually become 80, which means there's 12, and he's earning a lot of money, which means he doesn't mind spending 10K a month. So I have 1.2 lakhs of revenue from Kumaran's household. Sure,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Right.
But will I
So
do it?
this gym market is being projected on your case study. Right. Right. Uh,
So, yeah, so is there a 1.2 lakh market in my house? Absolutely. But will it happen? Now, unless the execution has to be done. Now, in this case, if the gym guys just open up a gym and sit there, they're not going to see my money.
right.
They got to do something more.
Right.
Okay, if they just implement a latest technology, then that's a digital solution. If they can figure out a way for me to get up in the morning and come to their gym, then they have done a digital transformation. So digital transformation also includes execution of the change that has to happen. It is not just implementing the technology,
Right. Right.
which is the key point a lot of people are missing. And there are already articles coming out from Gartner, Harvard, telling that digital transformation fatigue is sitting in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Okay.
this is people who have already started.
Okay.
And why is that happening? It is the same thing. The gym owner spent a lot of money setting up his gym and he's telling Kumaran is not coming. I gave
So,
him 20% discount.
he's not-
Still he's not coming. I put this extra beautiful TV in front.
Yeah.
Still he's not coming. I gave him a watch. He's
Mm-hmm.
still not coming. I
Mm-hmm.
gave him an app where he can see his weight. I put digital technology there.
Yes.
Still
Yes.
he's not coming.
Right.
So he's done all the digital things that needs to be done. In
Right.
fact, he will, using machine intelligence, he will predict Kumaran won't get up early in the morning. Big deal. Okay.
That.
So it will actually tell me, Kumaran, you'll sleep tomorrow morning till 7 p.m. and won't go to the gym. Okay, thank you. Good job.
What is the value of that information, right?
Exactly. So I think that's where we have to be careful because if they get all my data and just predict that tomorrow morning I won't come,
Hmm.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help the gym guy make his money. So he has to get something to make me come to the gym.
Mhm.
So a digital transformation project should be about helping things which get executed, which are getting stuck.
Right. So
For
it should be solving a business issue rather than digital transformation for the sake of digital transformation.
correct. Now I'll give a beautiful example of like we have a water problem in Chennai, right? Generally,
Right. Right.
and what they have done is actually pretty interesting. Um, when we book for a water tanker,
Mhm.
okay, previously we had to go to the local water board office and tell them they will write it down, and then all sorts of things will happen.
Mhm.
Now it has been made online so that you
Mhm.
can actually go and book.
Mhm.
And we've been doing this for a couple of months now. We learned that in an apartment, right? We have 4 houses in the apartment. So
Mhm.
one dwelling can book only once in two
Mhm.
weeks. They have
Mhm.
already put that into that.
Mhm.
Okay. And when the water guy came to deliver it, right? He
Mhm.
says, please give me the OTP.
Okay.
Because when I go back to office, I have to give the OTP for it to get fulfilled.
Okay. So there's a closing of the loop. He's not just taking water and supplying somewhere else. And
Supplying somewhere else. Correct.
yeah.
Now, that's good, and I think so. I'm telling it's something like that. Now,
Mhm.
if this automation had just been in managing the water trucks
Mhm.
and getting in requests like that, right?
Right.
Then that benefit wouldn't reach me. It doesn't help in the execution.
Right. Right.
So that's what I mean by doing something like this.
Right. I think this is a very simple and a beautiful example of how digital technology can enable to fulfill a process. Actually, this is basically you're ensuring that the user is satisfied and there is no cheating in between.
And the key thing which you just said now, the citizens' need is being met with the automation, not
Yes.
the officers' need.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Because if the tanker guy doesn't show up, who gets affected? Right.
Correct. But let's say they had just made an excellent fleet management application
Mhm.
and prediction. Okay. The
Yeah.
benefit of that will not be that much. Is it a good digital project? Yes, it is a
Yes.
good digital project. But would I categorize it as a digital transformation? No, I will not.
Right. So what is your advice to somebody in a medium-sized company? This is actually a government a department like this who's looking to do a impact, right? So I'm not saying
Correct.
that the transformation. I would rather classify as a digital impact. This is at least there is a because transformation is too big a word.
For a person in Chennai with water, it is transformation.
Okay.
I guess the water is so important.
Yes,
So,
exactly, exactly. Water is life, of course.
yeah,
Uh, so anybody who's willing to make an impact, right?
correct.
Anybody, any. So how do you think? What should be their thought process of thinking about this digital impact? How can they start thinking about making a digital impact in their small, medium enterprise or even a small department, right?
We have something called degrees of separation. Okay, so let's take if you take a services software development company.
Hmm.
Okay, the software development company does work for, let's say, a construction company. The construction company is actually delivering work to a common citizen like you and me.
Right.
Okay, so the common citizen has a problem or has a challenge in dealing with the construction company. So there is a boundary between the common citizen and the first site supervisor, the first level of boundary.
Right.
The site supervisor now has another boundary with his manager.
Hmm.
His manager has, his manager is still in the site.
Hmm.
Then there is another boundary which comes between the site and the actual back office operations. The back office operations has another boundary with the IT within the company.
Right.
That IT has another boundary with a liaison from the software service provider company.
Right.
And then there is the project manager, and then there's the developer. So roughly there is 6 degrees of separation between the actual customer, that is you and me, and
Right.
the actual guy solving the problem, who is the guy who is writing the code.
Right.
Now, the better chances of digital transformation if we can reduce the degrees of separation.
Okay.
So the lesser the degree of separation. So that means if I try to solve a problem, okay, which is at 2 degrees of separation, my impact will be more.
Mm-hmm.
If I try to do it for, like, let's say I do it for my IT guy,
Mm-hmm.
my company's IT manager, the
Mm-hmm.
impact will be good, but not high.
Mm-hmm.
If I do it for the IT manager of the construction company, the impact will be even more. But if I do it for the business guy
Mm-hmm.
of my customer, it becomes even more. If I make it for the site manager, it's even higher. But maximum impact can be done even if it's small for the consumer like me.
Right.
Then that solution. So the lesser the degree of separation of the problem solver and the problem, better the impact.
Great. Great. So thank you for these insights, Kumaran. There is one small thing which we have request for you is to recommend something for people to read, and this is what we call as the book recommendation section, which we hope people would want to listen to every time they listen to this podcast.
So I would kind of talking on what we are telling, right? So we have to
Mhm.
understand that technologies alone doesn't solve a lot of problems.
Right.
A classical problem is Clayton Christensen is one of the top innovators who exists. Okay,
Right.
and in his book Innovator's Dilemma, he talks
Mhm.
about how even new technologies can cause companies to fail. That's the interesting part.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have to make sure that digital and digital transformations doesn't become a reason for loss or pain to the business.
Right.
Let's take for a very simple example. So to give one concept from the book, right?
Mhm.
He talks about something called performance oversupply.
Mhm.
Okay, very simple. All of us have experienced performance oversupply. You and I have been with Microsoft for dog's years now,
Mhm.
right? Let's take Word.
Mhm.
How much percentage of features have you, Deepak, used?
5%.
You're being very generous, right? And liberal.
Yes.
Okay. So there is 95% features in Microsoft Word which is not used by majority of the people.
Right.
Now that means there is a performance oversupply.
Right.
Microsoft is a big company. It has a
Mhm.
lot of customers, so they can afford a performance oversupply, which means a performance oversupply is one for which a performance which is at the right supply means the investment to return is good.
Mhm.
If you are getting oversupply, that means it's getting wasted.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's like you ordering uh, 20 kgs of biryani.
Mhm.
That is a performance. Or you pay me for 1 kg, but I give you 5 kgs.
Yeah, that is oversupply, of course.
That's a oversupply, which means basically it gets wasted,
Right.
right? And by chance, if you had paid for it, it becomes an even bigger problem. You might have asked for it, but if I give it, it's a waste for you and me because I lost 4 more customers who could have benefited from it.
Right. Right.
And you could have spent that money in something else. So Christensen talks about not to do systems which has a performance oversupply.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's one starting step. Maybe in the next episode we can talk about something called identifying a performance under supply, which is
Mhm.
also an opportunity for digital transformation. So the book is Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton, and he talks about performance oversupply. So that's one way of dealing with digital transformation and how to give maximum use out of it.
Right. Thank you for the great recommendation, and you can catch hold of Kumaran on his uh, Saturday architecture show, which he does with great passion and spends a lot of time editing it. And I recommend it for all serious architects to listen to that show. And I also occasionally give my non-architects perspective on that. And I highly recommend going to tinymagic.com, TINYMAGIQ ETI-Unplugged.com, and you can get this podcast on ETI-Unplugged.in. Of course, we have ETI-Unplugged.com. If you by mistake type that, also it will go to take you to .in. Uh, and now the podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, and we have a RSS feed. Please subscribe to that so we should know you are appreciating it. And please, you are welcome to give comments on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. Like it, share it, and give us your feedback. Thank you very much. See you next time in episode 3. We'll get more stuff on digital transformation and lots of other stuff. We'll try and get new guests also to talk to us, and maybe the show is slowly getting longer and longer. So we'll get you to your destination. Your ride to the next commute would be entertaining enough and educating enough. See you next time. Thank you.